What's going on? My name is Paul Green. I'm a former British Paratrooper and Special Forces Support Group Operator. Over the past 12 years, I have trained thousands of elite soldiers. Now I've trained hundreds of grapplers since I've left the army in helping delete injuries and build physical body armour. In this video, I'm going to be talking through Gordon Ryan's training when he was training with Flex Lewis. I'm going to turn the volume off. Right, so they're doing a shoulder workout, right? And shoulder training for jiu-jitsu is actually very, very, very valuable, because on the mats we tick a lot of boxes in jiu-jitsu. We're doing a lot of aerobic stuff, we're doing a lot of muscular endurance stuff. But one thing that we're not really doing much of at all is training our shoulders, and that is probably one of the reasons why there's so many shoulder injuries. For those of you that don't know who Flex Lewis is, by the way, he is a 7-time Mr. Olympia champion from the Welsh country, Wales. Absolute legend of a bloke. So looking at Flex Lewis's lateral raises, they start with lateral raises on the first exercise, which is pretty interesting. And when I'm looking at people training, right, the first thing I'm looking at, right, when I think about people training well, the first thing I am looking at is their training intensity, right? One thing that you're going to get with all top athletes is really good technique. And we can sit here from our armchairs and be really critical of people's techniques. But if you think about the techniques that we're doing on jiu-jitsu, far more advanced than going into a gym and moving your joints on a machine that is built, engineered specifically to move your joints perfectly. So perfect technique in a weights room is far simpler than perfect technique on the mats. So we've got Giancarlo here, pretty straightforward. Another thing I look for when I'm looking for intensity, I look, where is that intensity coming from? Now, you see Giancarlo there, the speed in which he's doing the lateral raise at the first half of the rep is quite quick. I'm always a fan of not having your intensity come from speed of repetition. I'm a fan of making sure your intensity comes from heavy weight lifted, not at the detriment of form, but not from speed of reps, not for number of repetitions either. And I know these guys get a bad reputation because we can sit here on the internet and look at people and go, yeah, but he's taking steroids, yeah, but he's doing this, yeah, but he's doing that. Stop it. Is he training good? Are they doing the right exercises? Can I learn from them? Or am I going to sit here and point and say steroids? It doesn't make a difference if you're taking steroids. How many people do you know that take steroids that look like a bag of shit, that are unhealthy? Do you know what I mean? So can we learn from them? Always be willing to learn. So Giancarlo's looks like a warm-up set, this, to be honest with you. And you got Flex, he's probably saying, make sure the movement comes from your elbows. It's not from your hands, not from your forearms. A lateral raise is literally coming from your elbows. Clearly Flex Lewis likes to pause at the top here. And these machines, by the way, they are so much better than doing dumbbells, because the way the rotation is engineered through them, you get resistance at the lengthened part of the lateral raise, which is the bottom. You don't really get that with a dumbbell shoulder raise. But it is very interesting that Flex has guided this session to starting with a lateral raise. You know, I would probably prefer to start with something a little bit more compound-ish, like a dumbbell shoulder raise, shoulder press or something like that. But he is the fucking expert, man. I'm not going to criticise his bodybuilding. One thing I think goes underappreciated as well is the value of bodybuilding for jiu-jitsu. I know we're athletes, but having a foundation of muscle mass, there we go, there's the intensity, there's the intensity. One thing that I can criticise here is the amount of repetitions. So for muscle mass, the research suggests that anywhere between 5 and 30 repetitions, as long as you're going to this intensity, you're going to gain maximum muscle mass from that, right? But Giancarlo here, poor bastard, listen, He has been in this set here. He has been in this set for over a minute and a half. That means he's done about 35, 40 reps. And then he's got the partials at the bottom as well. I think that's unreal. I do this. So in our little weird way in the gym, we're looking at other people, we're seeing what techniques they're doing. And I've been bad for this over the past 10 years. We look at people and we think that they're doing terrible technique, and we would look at somebody like Giancarlo here and look at, what the fuck's he doing? Why is he doing 10 reps at the bottom? Looks like an idiot. When he has got no more muscular power or strength to do a full repetition, he is training there to true muscular failure. That is phenomenal, because you can't do the full rep. So you've got an option. Do I stop the set completely? And then that'll probably be about 70 or 80% of your maximum. You know when people say training to failure? When you do that, the partials at the end there, that becomes closer to true muscular failure. And that's a phenomenal set there, by the way, from Giancarlo. Even though it looked a little bit too light at the start, I would personally prefer for him to go heavier, just so the set doesn't have to take that long. Do you know what I mean? So now it looks like Flex Lewis is really going heavy here. Like, you can look at the effort there, a little bit of a lean, but you can see he's pulling some serious weight here. You can tell by the forearms. Look at that, he's maxed the stack there. And his set's going to be over quicker. And now he's going to drop it. He's going to get a little bit more, which is absolutely fine. And it just seems that it's just going to be a drop set. Every set is to failure. And this is when you know people are training correctly, training well. Are their sets to failure or very close to failure? And when you look at yourself in your gym, look at every set that you do and make sure it's to failure. Because if it's not, honestly, you're wasting a lot of time. You go in the gym, you're putting the effort in. However, you've got to ask yourself, are you going to this level? Because if you're not, the benefits that you're going to get are going to be suboptimal, right? So, intensity, tick. The most important thing. I can say that as a matter of fact. The most important thing for building muscle mass and strength for jiu-jitsu is intensity of your weightlifting sets. Flex has called it there. I think he's going to do a little bit more, which is fair enough. He's going to do them partials. Honestly, right, listen, you do this at the end of your lateral raises, these partials at the bottom, they feel unbelievable, because one of the negative sides of a lateral raise is that the hardest part of the rep is when the shortening of the muscle. That's kind of biomechanically, he's Luke Griffith here, biomechanically that's a bit of a problem. We like the lengthened part of the muscle to be the most difficult part of the rep. With the lateral raise, that's not the case. So the fact that you can drop a partial in at the end and do 5 or 6 partials at the bottom is phenomenal. So Luke Griffith here, I think does a really good set. It might be a little bit too heavy for him, but I just like the way he's struggling as early as possible. I like the idea of the first few repetitions of a set, you're thinking, fuck, this is probably a little bit too heavy here. I prefer that as opposed to going too light and having to do 20 or 30 reps. Now, I know Gordon Ryan does prefer light weights for a more endurance-based working set. However, it doesn't really make a difference, right? Because the most important thing is intensity. Like my preference of like a 6 to 10 rep range and Gordon Ryan's preference of a 20 to 30 rep range doesn't make a difference, because we're both doing the most important thing, and that is pushing our sets to failure. Like, look at Luke Griffith's face here. He's in tatters, and you could argue his form's breaking down. He might be pulling with his hands a little bit, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These tiny little things don't matter, because the intensity is there. The intent to develop his numbers and his strength every single session. That is literally the most important thing. You could be doing movements a little bit poor technique. You could be doing your movements, suboptimal movements. As long as you are putting this amount of effort in, you are going to develop so much, right? I'm going to skip on to a different movement. Let's listen to what they're going to say.
XL. Freaking way. You definitely pressing me too.
I would prefer personally a little bit more range of motion there from Gordon. However, I've been told in the past that my range of motion on my shoulder presses are a little bit too low. I don't like doing single arms, but he is warming up, so I just think you're wasting your time. Yeah, they are warming up. Yeah, it's not my cup of tea, but fair play, because I know they're going to put the work in. I know it doesn't matter about the weight that they're choosing to lift. The only thing that matters is their intensity.
Definitely pressing me too. Front delt. Keep very strong in your front delts.
Also, a machine is better than dumbbell shoulder presses because you can load the machine a hell of a lot easier and a hell of a lot safer. Like, there's no consequence to putting the weight down. There's no consequence to failing a repetition on a machine. So the fact that they went straight into the machine rather than straight into a traditional standing press or a dumbbell shoulder press, because the dumbbell shoulder press has a limitation. You have to get the weight onto your shoulders. That's a problem for a lot of people. Now, the fact that they're going straight into the machine shows that they only care about developing this part of their shoulder.
I look so fucking skinny in this shit. I'm like, I'm quite thin. I put a 2X on. Ali's like, what size is that? That looks good to you. Fucking 2X, dude. Fucking 2XL. Freaking way. Gordon, can you do me a favor? Just pull me up and then step away. I'll call you. Let me get my focus. My ball. Yes, thank you, bro. I go one more. Don't be a bitch.
Bastard. This is amazing. This is amazing. Like, he's lifting that heavy that he can't get the weight off himself. There is an argument to be made, you know, is being at that bottom position actually beneficial for the development of your front delts? There is an argument to be made in that case, you know, the finer details of advanced biomechanics. However, he gets a spot, he's lifting 4 plates each side on the shoulder press, which is double what I can do. Gordon lifts him off. He's putting in the intensity. Again, I keep coming back to the same thing. The most important thing. And he's angry at himself. But this is what it's all about. It's you and your brain versus gravity. It's an endless scale. It's phenomenal. It's so valuable. Simplicity of this is so valuable for your jiu-jitsu, because the simplicity and the precision of you having the control of all the variables, how much weight you're lifting, the speed in which you want to lift it, the numbers in which you want to lift, how long your rest periods are, all the variables are in your control. The development of your physical capabilities is fully under your control. You versus gravity, and it's just an endless developmental scale of you growing in your physical capabilities. That could be strength, power, muscle mass, speed, muscular endurance, mobility, all of these things. And this is where I'm massive on training for jiu-jitsu, because one of the problems is with our martial art is that a lot of people in our martial art only do jiu-jitsu. And when we're doing jiu-jitsu, as amazing it is and as complex as it is, we don't have full control over the variables. That's why we love it so much. Sometimes we are grappling with, you know, someone like Dorian Yates, who just absolutely destroys us. We don't get a chance to display any of our physical capabilities. Sometimes we're grappling with, you know, a complete beginner, and we want to be more coaching mindset. We have, so it's pretty relaxed. And we're not going to go crazy and develop our high-end cardiovascular system when we're grappling with them because we're being more of a coach and a mentor. Well, when we're in the gym, we haven't got another person to worry about. All we have to worry about is our own intent to develop our physical capabilities in that moment. And, you know, we can sit here and split hairs. We can complain about the fact that Gordon Ryan's doing light weights for 35 reps or Giancarlo's doing partials. None of it matters, because the ultimate thing, the most important thing, is training intensity. And all of these are training to failure. And here's another thing. Most people do the set until they start feeling the muscle working, and then they stop. That's when your set essentially should start. Your first rep should be like, fuck, this is a little bit too heavy. And your last rep should be impossible because you couldn't achieve a last rep. And that's why these are doing the end range partials, because that is just proof that they have pushed it to the required intensity. And that is when you know you are going to get the most from your training. And if you train like this, you can literally train so much less in the gym. You can do so much less workouts in a week. If you're willing to go to this intensity, you can do less training and get more results than you ever have done before. I know this because I used to train not like this for about 10 years, and I looked the same as I did 10 years ago. It's only the past few years that I've actually started training like this, and I'm getting more results for the whole combined previous time period. So hopefully you can take something away from this video. This is me reacting to absolute legends of our sport. Flex Lewis, legend in the bodybuilding world. And if you take anything away from this, take away some motivation in doing some basic bodybuilding. You've got to look at yourself as an athlete and think, where are my main weaknesses? Do you have much muscle mass? Could you do with developing your muscle mass? Because remember, muscle mass is the foundation of every single physical capability.